Hello and welcome to this special edition of The Learning Curve. My name's Nathan Brennan, and in this episode, we'll be learning about what to expect from the weather with Edinboro Geosciences professor Dr. Kerry Moyer. Welcome.
Hi, Nathan. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well.
Oh, good. Well, we're talking about the weather today. So there is a distinct chill in the air. And for people in the Edinboro and Erie area, that generally signals toward one thing, and that is the arrival of winter. So you've measured weather in the Edinboro area for a while. How long have you recorded weather here?
My first year here was the fall semester of 1997. So it's been quite a while now, and we measure data on top of Cooper Hall on campus, and I teach several meteorology classes and climate science classes within the Geosciences department.
In what ways would you generally record and measure the weather on top of the science hall?
We have instruments on top of a Cooper Hall, and they measure things like temperature, pressure, humidity, winds, precipitation, and all that data is archived. And we also make that data normally available to the public in near real time by coming to the Edinboro weather site, Edinboro University site, and searching Edinboro weather.
Has it been maintained through this semester as well, despite the virtual learning that we've had this semester?
Yeah, the COVID has unfortunately put a little a monkey wrench into our near real time data. It's still archiving just fine. We're not losing any data, but it is not available near real time. We're hoping to get it up and running as soon as possible.
Sure. I'm sure there's been a learning curve with everything that we've been doing this semester, especially when you're not able to be there as much in person. But I'm glad it's still able to be archived for sure. So in your best estimation, what is our winter outlook?
Well, I'd like to share a few slides with you, and we can talk about what we anticipate this coming winter.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we look at when we're trying to make a long-term weather forecast or projection of several months from now is we look at what's going on globally with these large-scale circulations that we have in the ocean and the atmosphere. And one of the ones that we found to be really helpful to look at is what's happening in the tropical Pacific. A lot of people are familiar with the term El Nino. This is a periodic change that happens in the tropical Pacific with the ocean water temperatures and the winds. But fewer people are probably aware of its cousin La Nina. And it appears this winter, based on our computer model projections, that La Nina will be occurring in the tropical Pacific and be a big player in what happens here across the United States and in northwestern Pennsylvania. So this graphic that I have up just basically shows how water temperatures and the circulation within the atmosphere changes from an El Nino situation to a La Nina situation. The blue colors represent areas of the ocean which are cooler than normal during those time periods, and the orange is where they're warmer than normal. And whenever you change the water temperatures in the tropics, you also change where the air rises and where it sinks. And you also change the wind flow horizontally as well. So the bottom graphic is sort of the conditions we anticipate to be in place for this upcoming winter in the tropical Pacific. You wouldn't think that something happening in the tropical Pacific would have any implications on what's happening here in North America or in other places around the globe. But we've actually been able to go back in time and look at La Ninas of the past. And this has given us some idea of what we can expect during the winter season, this upcoming winter season. we can actually go back and try to find correlations with what's happening in the tropical Pacific to other places around the globe. Sometimes we call these teleconnections. And so our normal period in meteorology for the winter is the months of December, January, and February. And so if you go back and take a look during other La Nina years, what kind of conditions we experienced elsewhere, we can plot it up. And that's what you're looking at here. So you can see here in North America in the dark blue area, this is an area where normally during a La Nina, that winter season tends to be cooler and wetter than normal. The areas in green tend to be wetter than normal. And the area in the tan color here across the southern United States, that's an area that tends to be warmer and drier than normal. Now, there's no guarantees that, first of all, a La Nina is going to form this upcoming winter, although our computer models are indicating that it will. And so a lot of these projections for this upcoming winter are based on the La Nina, in fact, occurring over the next several months. And being fairly strong as well. The stronger the La Nina, the better chance you have of having this pattern emerge during the winter season. So if we look up close here in the United States, this kind of summarizes what the weather is normally like in a typical La Nina wintertime situation. Again, the Pacific Northwest tends to be quite wet and also chillier than normal. The southern United States is typically quite dry and milder than normal. And then it gets a little more iffy around the Great Lakes region and into Pennsylvania. We anticipate that there will be shots of cold air coming down like you'd normally expect from Canada during a normal winter. But usually when you have that warmer than normal conditions just to your south, we also see impulses of that mild air work their way in here periodically as well. So there'll be shots of cold, but we think there'll also be some warm periods as well during the upcoming winter. It may be hard to actually lock in the cold for an extended period of time simply because that milder weather is so close to us, just to our south. This is an official forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, which is part of the National Weather Service. And this is their forecast for temperatures for December, January, and February for the 3-month period. Anywhere you see a pink or a red color, that indicates they expect warmer than normal conditions. And the blue would be colder than normal for that 3-month period. The more deep the red is, the more confident we are of warmer than normal conditions. And again, the deeper the blue, the more confident we are of having colder than normal conditions. So you can see, especially here in Western Pennsylvania, we have some confidence, not overly confident, but we have some confidence that we're likely to be above normal for that 3-month period as a whole. Let me show you the precipitation forecast. The green areas are supposed to be wetter than normal. The tan areas are likely to be drier than normal. So if we focus on the wetter areas, again, the Pacific Northwest, we have good confidence that this tends to get more precipitation during a La Nina winter season. And there's also a tendency in the Ohio Valley to be a bit wetter than normal as well. We're kind of on the fringe here on the eastern edge of where that wetness in the Ohio Valley tends to hang out. So we have a somewhat less confidence in our precipitation forecast here in Pennsylvania than we would further to the west across Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. I guess the bottom line here with everything I've gone through is it looks like it may be difficult to sort of hang on to cold air for extended periods of time. So maybe a very fluctuating season temperature-wise. And as far as precipitation is concerned, with that warm air nearby, we would anticipate that some of the storms that come through here, we might just end up getting rain rather than snow. Now, lake effect adds another complication to the mix because, as you know, if you've lived around here for a while, lake effect really only needs some cold air coming down across the lakes, the warmer lakes, for a period of just a couple days. And you can get hammered with lake effect snow just in a couple day period before the cold air relaxes and it starts warming up again. So it is more difficult here in northwestern Pennsylvania to forecast how much snow we're going to get, simply because lake effect is sort of a wild card in the whole equation. But I guess if I was pressed into coming up with a forecast at this point in time, I would expect that we'd have a below normal snowfall amount for the winter season as a whole. And again, we're basing all of this on La Nina in fact happening, like our models indicate that it will, and that it'll be a fairly strong El Nino, or La Nina. If something goes wrong with that forecast and La Nina doesn't develop as anticipated, then all bets are off.
Seems like this entire winter is a little wild card. There's a lot of factors to consider with what's actually going to happen. But by all indications, it seems like it's not going to be as oppressive of a winter as we've tended to experience in this area.
That's the way it looks at this point in time. It is a lot easier. We've become better and better at our long range forecasts, and we're better at forecasting temperature differences rather than precipitation at this point. The precipitation forecasts have always lagged a bit behind our confidence in the temperature forecast. So we'll see what happens. We've been fortunate recently that we really haven't had extended cold, snowy winters the last few years. Everybody remembers that big lake effect event we had over Christmas a few years ago. But honestly, if you look at the snow totals, we've kind of gotten off fairly easy over the last few years as far as snowfall amounts.
True. However, there is one thing that we always must be concerned with, regardless of how much precipitation there is, and that is safety. So what are some tips that you would have to stay safe and healthy during the winter, especially with some of these weather conditions that may fluctuate?
Well, one thing you always want to watch out for is hypothermia, which is when your body temperature drops to dangerous levels. And that can be a very severe medical condition. So I know you've heard this before, but it's important to make sure you're dressed appropriately, dress in layers, which is more effective at maintaining your body temperature. Frostbite is another thing you have to worry about. Sometimes when the temperatures are really cold and you have very strong winds, it only takes a matter of a few minutes until you can suffer from frostbite. So you want to make sure you cover up any exposed areas on your body as best that you can. Snow shoveling, snow clearing, especially if you're getting up there in age, you have to be careful with maybe hurting your back or potentially cardiac problems as well, especially if it's a heavier, wetter snow that you're trying to clear. Walking across campus, just slipping on and falling on icy surfaces can be a problem. So, at some point in time, I'm sure you were told to walk like a penguin a little bit with your feet out and small, tiny steps, which allows you to maintain your traction a little bit better. And I guess lastly, I'd encourage everybody to make sure that they have a winter safety kit in their car. That would include things like blankets in case you get stranded, a flashlight, perhaps some jumper cables in case you have a problem with your battery. Make sure you have a spare tire that's working and a spare tire jack as well. Maybe some cat litter. If you can use that for traction if you find yourself getting stuck. If you go online, there's plenty of recommendations for what to include in a car safety kit, but those are a few of the things.
Definitely. Well, this has been a great look into what possibly awaits us this winter and a few suggestions on how to stay safe from a seasoned professional. So I'd like to thank you for joining me, and we will see you all in the next episode of The Learning Curve.